Story 1. The Man in the Hall. I was working as a trainee hairstylist. The salon had a large rectangle with a door leading to the hallway on the left. The doors led off to the hallway on the right. There was a kitchen, a bathroom, and the boss's office. Then the hallway opened up into a large square where all the hair chemicals, the washing machine, that sort of thing was kept. Everything in the salon was normal. The haunting, it started rather suddenly. I started feeling like I was being watched. I got the distinct impression that it was a man. I didn't like going to the kitchen alone. I was petrified to go to the bathroom alone. It always felt like someone was outside waiting for me. The feeling of fear intensified anytime I was near my boss's door. I actually started to run past her door, and several other girls who worked there did the same. One day I was alone in the back room, mixing chemicals, humming to myself, which I do when I'm scared, when all of a sudden a huge can of hairspray came shooting off a shelf through the doorway, barely missing me. I ran out of the door to see who was there, and no one was. Everyone was busy at their own station. About 2 weeks into this, I started to catch sight of a man in the hallway. He was wearing black biker leathers and a crash helmet. He was always standing right by my boss's door, facing me, blocking the hallway. I could see through him. One day I decided to find out if anyone else could see him. So I asked one of the other girls if they could see anything odd in the hallway. And she remarked, "Only the man standing there by the boss's door." I asked her what he looked like, and she described the exact same man I was seeing. Another girl wandered over. She had overheard our conversation, and she said that she too could see him. Turns out we had all seen him and felt terrified by his presence. One day at work, our boss was standing in the front with us when an old lady came in. She said that she was a medium. My boss immediately jumped. When asked why he had jumped, my boss said that it felt as if someone was standing right behind him. The medium replied that, in fact, someone was standing right next to him, and that it was his best friend, who had passed away while riding his motorcycle. Apparently, the friend knew that my boss was going to be in trouble and was here to help, to comfort him. The psychic told us that our fearful feelings were because the man died so suddenly and unexpectedly that he was projecting his feelings and emotions, and we were just picking up on them. Literally the next day, we no longer felt this man's presence, and the salon's energy was back to normal. 6 months later, my boss got into some serious legal trouble. Maybe he should have heeded the warning of his friend. Story 2. What the bus driver saw. I worked till about 10 at the mall every night. However, the bus ride home didn't arrive until about 11:20 because after 7 p.m., the bus only shows up every 2 hours. It's okay, it's whatever. I'd get off work and then go wait for the bus. One particular night, my bus pulls in at about 11:10. The driver runs out of the bus like his butt's on fire. I've ridden this bus consistently for at least 4 years. Always the same driver. He's always nice, just an average guy. He's not prone to stories. He called me over and he asked me to get on the bus and see if I can smell something. I got on, and sure enough, it didn't smell good in there. It was a sickly, sweet, nasty smell. Not super strong, just barely hanging in the air. I got off the bus and said, "Yeah, I can smell something." And then he told me a truly strange tale. We live in a long, narrow river valley in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. The bus services several small cities and towns up and down both sides of the river. His run takes him west down one side of the river to the transit mall, then east up the other side of the river. He had just started his run west to the transit mall when he stopped to pick up a few people. He had a few people on the bus with him when he stopped a few miles further down the road to pick up one guy. As he put it, drivers pick up a sense for people after a few years on the job. Something that just tells them this one might be a problem. This guy appeared perfectly normal, but he set off the driver's internal bells for some reason. So the driver was keeping an eye on him. They got another few miles down the road when the people in the back of the bus started complaining about the smell, opening windows. It wasn't long before the passengers and the driver had all the windows open because the smell was quite strong and nasty. He even got out of his seat at one stop and looked for something that might account for it, but he couldn't find anything out of place, anything where the smell was stronger and might indicate the source of it. Eventually, he hit the outskirts of the city. All of his passengers, including the one he had the bad feeling about, got off the bus. Again, he looked through the bus trying to find the source of the smell. He couldn't find anything. He decided that since it was late, and he usually didn't pick up anyone else until he hit the transit mall, which was a good 6 miles on up the road, he would just turn off all the internal lights and cruise into downtown with some of the windows open and hope the smell went away. He made it about halfway when the buzzer indicated that someone wanted off the bus. He said out of habit, and because his mind was on something else, he stopped the bus and opened the doors. But no one got off the bus. Of course they didn't. There was no one on the bus. He had already let off all of his passengers. This unnerved him a little bit, but he rationalized that there was probably a short in the wiring. He shut the door, and off he went. And then he realized that the awful smell that had plagued the bus for almost 30 miles, despite the open windows, was finally starting to fade. Now he started to put two and two together, and he spent the whole way to the transit mall hoping that someone would get on the bus and verify this smell existed. I was the only passenger waiting at the transit mall, the only one he had on the final leg of his last run for the night. He actually asked me to ride all the way to the end of his run with him and let me drop him off at my stop on the way back. He was this unnerved by what had happened. I was off the next day, so I didn't mind one bit not getting home until after 1 a.m. Most people that I tell this tale to agree that this hapless bus driver gave a ride that night to more than just paying fares. What it was is anyone's guess. Story 3. Ghosts of my past. My tale begins when I was a young girl, maybe 2 or 3. When I was about 10, my best friend and I made a homemade Ouija board. The first question we asked, how do we know you're really here? And then we started hearing music. The music was coming from the bricked up fireplace in my bedroom. It was just a low, single saxophone playing softly. The sound continued for a couple days before it faded out into nothing. Many years later, when I was older, I did some deed research on the house, and apparently a musician passed away in that room in the 1920s. When I was about 12, I had a friend sleep over. Around 2 a.m., I woke up with a start. There was a figure standing in the doorway. It instantly hits me that this is not a good spirit. This presence felt bad. I started to sweat. This entity was tall and menacing, but I couldn't see any distinguishing features. One thing I do remember, as clear as day, was that he had a very bright, glowing red aura about him. That's what scared me the most. Eventually he faded into nothing, just backed away from the door and slowly faded out. I leaned over and looked at my friend. Did you see him? We both burst into tears. She crawled into my bed. and we slept huddled up, too afraid to go to my parents' room to tell them. When I was 15, my family had went to go shopping. I stayed home. I had a lot of homework. I was sitting at my desk in my room. I had a clear view of the hallway when I heard someone running up the hall. I looked up, thinking I'd just missed seeing someone go past my door. I yelled out to my sister, thinking that maybe she had stayed behind, but there was no reply. But the noise happened over and over and over again. I got rather nervous, and I went to investigate. I found nothing. I was all alone in the house. I eventually gave up doing homework and went to do the dishes. As I was washing up, I distinctly heard the sound of someone walking the length of the kitchen. The sound of bare feet on the linoleum. Just that soft padding sound. I looked over my shoulder. Nothing. When I turned back to the dishes, I felt a blow of cool steam, like someone had breathed on the back of my neck. I spun around, sending water everywhere. Nothing. No one was there. I decided that it was best to just leave the house. So I went to the backyard and played with my dog until my family got home. Eventually we moved, and whatever was in that house didn't come with us. But it took us a long time before we could fully relax in the new house. Story 4. What they saw. All of my family pretty much lived in its own little neighborhood. And this neighborhood had the weirdest things happen to it. My family had some pretty strange beliefs. One night, my dad, who is not too swayed by the idea that things can happen without explanation, and my uncle, who is very deeply in the beliefs of the other world, were driving down the hill that circled around the little drive that was in front of our grandmother's house. What they saw will always be some sort of a mystery, because my dad came back so pale. To this day, I can't wipe the image out of my mind. They looked towards my grandmother's house. Right below where the skirting of the house usually is, they saw a little girl with no face. She was wearing a white dress, rocking back and forth in a little rocker, shaking her head back and forth. Again, they said that she had no face. They couldn't turn away from her. They said it felt like she was drawing them to come closer and closer, until finally my dad decided that they needed to get out of there as fast as they could, for whatever reason. They were going to my grandmother's house for could wait until later. We've never got to the bottom of who the little girl was or what she was doing there. It's just one of the more unknown things that's happened in our little community. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories. If you did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to hear your own story featured, send me an email at hauntedfamilypodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Bye.